Hello, everybody. Mariner here. The intro seemed to go really fast then, which is quite strange because I'm certainly not fast, not at 6:30 in the morning on 3 gin and tonics, doubles, and also 3 hours sleep. As you see, I don't know if you can see, but my bags under my eyes are like suitcases, which is quite ironic because it's the first thing I want to actually do is pack a suitcase here in Singapore. Guys, how are you doing? We haven't got Hibbo. We haven't got Hibbo. We haven't got Nima today because he's busy. He's busy. Well, I don't know quite know what he's doing in a hotel.
He's honeymooning.
He's honeymooning. He's honeymooning. So hopefully he's having a good time, a very good time.
Yeah. Well, it's 11:30, so I would imagine he is.
I mean, we all know how well. Yeah, we're all married, right? We all know how it works. He's married now. 11:30. He's been asleep for 2 hours. That boy's not going to have much fun for the rest of his life if everything goes well.
You mean right? 8? Don't you mean 8 hours?
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, Hibbo, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. It's just past 11:30 here, so almost bedtime, but I'm still raring to go. So
that's the main thing. And Gabe, you just had to run out and do some errands. That's why we had to start a little bit later, but all good.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Another reason I think is your state, Norwich. I'm gonna have a lot of fun this show. I think.
To be honest, half an hour. At least I've got an extra half hour in bed.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, not to worry. So anyway, guys, we are net that haul, as you can see, from various parts of the world, in various states of health and just general well-being on a Saturday morning at 6:30 in the morning in Singapore. Very late in the evening in Derry and mid-afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona, with Gabe. This is our second episode for the 21-22 season. And today we're going to be looking at fixture difficulty. And I think that is, for me, the building blocks of FPL, trying to look at the statistics. So we're going to look at what's out there, the offerings, and then we're going to have a look at my fixture difficulty, which I've developed, which has been running now for best part of a year, and which also where my Captaincy Metric basically picks up from, which is what people are quite interested in, obviously, considering it did really well last year. So I think all we can say apart from this is, please do, if you like what you're seeing, please do hit the subscribe button. Please give us a like. And when there's no forfeits today, by the way, I don't think, if we get 50, is there? Have we got any forfeits?
There's no forfeits today.
No, I don't think we've got anyone to do. No. I'm too busy. I'm too busy thinking about the Euros at the moment. So I've got the flag up now. So no forfeits this week, but still give us a like. Still subscribe. Still hit the bell, and please hit us up on Twitter and also wherever if you're listening to this rather than watching it, please also hit us up on wherever you are on pods, walking the dog, whatever you're doing, in a hotel on a honeymoon, whatever you're doing, just listen to that whole. So, right, nothing much more to say. So let's crack on. So here we go. Another.
Sorry about that. No, it's gonna be one of those.
What have we done? Oh dear. And the good thing is, this is the thing for the listeners. We don't edit this. This is as it is. This is raw FPL. So if there's a cock up, it stays in. If the room collapses, it stays in. If there's an earthquake, it stays in. Literally, honestly, we've had all sorts before now on that whole. So anyway,
if the cat knocks over your wine and spills it on your computer, it stays.
We've had things like that. Yes.
If the boys out in the front street have a power drill going or anything like that, it stays on.
No, it's not as if that had happened, is it? Has that ever happened on that whole?
Well, we had the a couple times that I remember.
My God. Oh, heck. Oh, anyway, we've got some comments. So we've got John Chappell. This is on tonight? Yes. Yeah, are we here? It's a strange comment.
We were late.
All right. Okay. I bungled. Chris ain't had his morning coffee shot yet. That's right. You should have seen me trying to set this up bungle a few minutes ago. It was a nightmare. I kept pressing the wrong buttons. FPL Arrows, hi lad, hi mate as well. Not many on probably the time of day, but anyway, doesn't matter. You can pick it up later. So let's dive in. So let's talk about fixture difficulty and what is out there. But first of all, a couple of things. Of course, we've mentioned about subscribers and we've mentioned about charities, but we'll say it every week. The channel is growing really, really well. Thank you so much for your support. But when we hit 1,000 followers, we are going to donate something to charity, $100 or something like that. It'll be a heart charity, I think we've decided for this first one, basis Christian Eriksen. And once we hit 2,000, probably around $250. And of course, once that's done, we'll let you know. But we've got to get there first. So if you haven't hit subscribe, please do. Please come to the YouTube channel and please hit subscribe. Because Nima will have spent all his money on his wedding. So we need to get him, we need to make him... we need to make him even skinter. So come on, please hit the button. and secondly, the other thing which we'll bring up is the mini league. And so we've started to promote the mini league now. The code for those listening is FG1XNB. Never very easy. I heard a comment on who got the assist about these codes. Why can't it be NTH1? Sorry to steal what Stag said on there, who got the assist, but it's a bit of a pain in the backside. But anyway, FG1XNB. So come and join us. We're all in there. Come and take us on. Beat the Mariner. Beat Hibbo. Beat the coach in the bottom of the screen as well.
Beat the metric.
Beat the metric.
Just beat everybody.
Yes, come and beat us. We'd love you. We'd love you to go, and we'll of course give you some shouts out. And there are prizes. We just haven't decided what they are yet.
Well, we have a bit of time until the season starts, so
that's a theme with us. Like we don't really want to commit to any conclusions or anything like that. The season hasn't started yet. We have time, everybody. Let's just chill on the beach for a little while longer. Huh?
This is a common thing with you, Gabe. I noticed this the other day on Twitter. You got someone tried to back you into a corner and you just didn't commit at all. I thought it was very funny indeed. Made some excuse that it was too early. You hadn't done your research.
I got backed into the corner almost twice this week. Hibbo called me a politician for getting out of those squeezes.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so please, just to summarize before we completely just talk cack for the next 15 minutes. The mini league channel. The mini league channel. Oh my god, Father. The mini league. FG1XNB. I blame it on the Spanish for conceding that goal. That was it. That was the reason why I'm up late. Sat up and watched extra time and penalties. Anyway, right, enough of the Euros. Let's crack on. So let's go into fixture difficulty. So what are we going to do? We're going to look at the different offerings that are out there. And I think the first point to make is that all of the fixture difficulties out there, if it suits you, use it. Okay, I think that's the general consensus which we're going to go. We're not going to spend a great deal of time on each particular one. Some of them we're not going to cover because they don't quite do what we're trying to achieve in this show, which is actually pick out a ranking for game week 1 through game week 5 for attack and defense. So that's actually our goal for today. And obviously, on the basis of that, then that brings us to the conversation. So what we're doing is we're looking at the fixture difficulties which actually allow us to do that. So we're going to look at the official site, which doesn't. I think we all know that. But then we're going to look at Hub and we're going to look at Fix. And they're really the only two that really allow us to compare. So let's dive in. It's a bit of a jigsaw. But we'll start with the official site. And I think that's the fairest way of doing it, is we start where we probably don't want to be. In fact, to go as far as saying we definitely don't want to be. Because you know my view on this official site, guys. Any fixture difficulty which has 4 colours, to me, is about as much use as a chocolate teapot.
Nipples on a breastplate.
Something like that. Have you got one of those?
I have a bit of a gripe with official FPL FDR, because once upon a time you used to be able to download it as a PDF, and they used to also update it kind of on a weekly basis. So if a team was looking strong, they would make them green and stuff like that on the actual FDR. But I can't find it any more downloadable as a PDF. So not only is it completely useless, you just can't even access it in PDF form, which is scandalous, really, in my book. But
I mean, for me, the thing which immediately leaps out of me, and you see my notes. I've just put my notes on the screen. I thought, well, why not just share exactly what I was thinking when I was putting these slides together? 4 colours on what basis? That it's so difficult to just allocate a colour, one of 4 colours for FPL. Is it attack? Is it defence? Is it overall? What is it? You can have at one stage, let's say Liverpool at one stage last season, super at attack, but defensively they were awful. How can you possibly have one colour with no form of measurement for a fixture difficulty? For me, you can't differentiate. You're unable to rank, so we can't even sort it to try and figure out who we want to target. Look, I'm going to say it, boys. In my view, this is not fit for purpose for the serious FPL player. Agreed?
Yeah, totally.
I think it's not fit for purpose for a casual FPL player. I'd rather play blind than play with these colors. There are certain biases associated with colors, right? And it could just be all wrong. This could actually be guiding us in the wrong direction. So I'd say it's better to play with no FDR than with this FDR.
But do you know, once upon a time, it didn't actually even have colours. Like once upon a time, it was just all grey. And the colours are a recent addition. And I remember when the colours kind of came online, and informed players said in message boards saw the colours and he says, "Oh, they're spoon feeding casuals." So if this is spoon feeding casuals, I wonder what Mariners do.
Well, they've got to understand it first. So, I mean, the beauty of it is that I get so many questions. Oh, how does this work, Chris? Well, come to the show. We'll explain it. That's where we talk about it. But yeah, I mean, look, point of fact, look at Wolves at the bottom. Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle. Are those green given Wolves' end of season form? Not for me.
Mm-mm.
Not for me. But anyway, there's just a little egg. So, okay, let's keep going. If I can turn the damn screen over, let's try. Here we go. So now we're going to start with some of the other offerings. And of course, Gabe and in fact, Gabe, Nima and Hibbo are all associated now with Hub. So I think it was worth starting with them. And I had a look around this. I'm also a subscriber to Hub. And I looked around this and I actually found it quite interactive. I found it quite easy to sort. Was a bit, I couldn't quite work out. I think the thing we'll say with this is, from my perspective, I can't quite work out how they're actually achieving or getting to the numbers. But I think that's quite often a bit of a secret, Hibbo, right? It's something which people don't necessarily want to share how they get to their FDR. It might be because they don't want to be challenged on it. I don't know. What's your thought?
Well, I think it's kind of like the crown jewels, really, and nobody wants to give away their secret too much. I would agree with that. Now, whenever I'm writing my articles, I use the Hub FDR ticker for all my articles, really. And I like the fact that you have options where you can select like overall fixture strength or specify whether you want to look solely at attack or solely at defense. They've got a nice wee toggle where you can select the game week range. I like the way you can select the individual weeks where you can say, well, who's the strongest in say week 2 or week 3, and who's the weakest. So I do think it's a good FDR. As far as I know, it's based on a model, a predictive model, and it's based also on kind of spread bet nodes. So they'll be looking at who's likely to score over 2.5 goals, who's likely to what kind of percentage are you factored in for a clean sheet. So I think it's kind of dynamic as the season goes on, because teams might show a bit of form or teams might show that they're actually fairly weak. So
I mean, so that's great. So it's dynamic, and I think that's a very, very important point with fixture difficulty. It has to change. It cannot just. Fixture difficulty pre-season cannot be the same, or will not be the same after a few weeks. We'll talk about this later as to actually the sort of periods that we might even be looking at from position to position. But look, let's face it. It gives this hub ticker. It gives you the ability to rank between teams. 1 to 5, which is what we're trying to achieve today, and it sorts. For attack by. I think it's is it goals scored potential, and also on the basis of the opponent. And blue is good and red is bad, and there are shades of in between, which is what I like. Mm-hmm. You can look at that, and there is a number there, goals for, which I think looks to be from the first 5 game weeks, suggesting that Manchester United might score, as I think. Sounds like they might score 8.4. I'm not quite sure. But look, whichever way it is, that's at least there is some form of ranking which you can compare. So I think, look, that's very positive for me. And defense-wise, again, blue's good, red's bad. And it's sorted by clean sheet potential. So you can sort by the opponent's difficulty or by the predicted result. So I actually think, and I'm not just saying that because you guys are actually you actually have a link with Hub. It is a pretty good FDR, but it is behind. Is it behind the paywall?
It is behind the paywall. It's very much part of the premium package for Opta Stats. So people would have to sign up as a member, which they can do at the minute, but there's an offer on. But it is behind the paywall, and I know yours isn't. So.
Yeah,
I will say, if anyone is thinking of signing up, #ad, both Hibbo and I will have individual links where we get a little kickback for if you guys use those links to sign up. So they're not out yet, but they are coming. But what I will say, that what's interesting to me about the hub ticker, and people don't want to, of course, they don't want to divulge what their secret sauce is, right? There's a reason why the formula to Coke was secret for so many years, right? And full respect to the people that make these, but this is much like many of the tools on Hub. They're very interactive, like you guys were saying, and they're adaptable. You can make it suit whatever purpose you want, unlike the official one that you were talking about, Mariner, that is not fit for purpose. This has a lot of purpose, and it's up to us as managers to kind of put the purpose in there and use the tool accordingly.
I think. Sorry. Go on, Hibbo.
Well, I think if you look at the functionality that you can see in the slide in the screen where it's saying, say, about defense and the game week range, if you see beside the team name that you've got a tick, you can actually untick teams. So that say that you were left with 2 or 3, and you could have a look to see, well, how could you build say like a defensive rotation with these teams? And I think that's a pretty good tool, because you can take teams out of the mix and you can focus maybe, well, where are the good 4.5 options? How can I make a good rotation maybe in the long term? If rotation's your thing, it's not for everybody, I know.
No. But I think you make an important point, Gabe, there, when we're talking about fixture difficulties, it's just one piece of the puzzle of FPL, right? But it is an important piece, and I think for me, it's the building block for the whole thing. So get a fixture difficulty, guys, which you're happy with. Okay, challenge it.
Like, so some are based on stats, some are based on predictions, some are based on expected stats. They all have different spices, different ingredients. So choose the one that you like.
There was a message about, can you explain the advanced tab on the hub ticker from FPL 4P Hibbo. I think that just puts the numbers alongside, doesn't it?
Yeah, it would give like a more accurate rating of like how strong the fixture is. Whereas at the minute you're just kind of seeing it in different shades of color, and it'll put a number on it to give a more exact ranking. I suppose if you wanted the, if you selected advanced, it would give a number, and you could select by one. You would see obviously that the highest ranking for say clean sheet coming to the top. Then
I think that 1.5 is that not an average of those 5? I think
it is an average, but I will say that kind of looks very vague. I think like if you clicked on the advanced, it would look a slight bit better than that. You know?
I maybe should have done that. But I mean, look, we can always, if worse comes to worse, we can always, or you can maybe explain that in one of your adverts.
There's a lot of adverts at the minute.
So let's not spend too much time on these adverts, right?
I mean, to be fair, there's more to advertise than there is information for FPL. So I guess
there is at the moment. So anyway, so that's the hub ticker. So we're going to look at Fix now, and this is very different.
Mm-hmm.
Not least, at least it's got different colours. It does tend to have the 5 colours with respect to the different, shall we say, games. But when you're looking at it, there is a way to sort it overall, but it's more of a shade. It's done by like a shaded sort of system. But for example, this is the one on the screen there is sorted by attack difficulty. You have the ability to exclude a game week, which I think is quite a nice touch. Because, for example, again, if you're looking at rotation, that gives you the ability to drop a week out, right? Let's say there's a blank game week or something like that, or a double game week, or you're going to play your free hit. You can drop a particular week. So I quite like that. I think that's quite a nice way of doing it. And we can, on the basis of that, get basis of shades. We can get a 1 to 20. If you wanted to, but you've got to work at it a little bit. But what I quite like about Fix is that you can actually sort your player's difficulty in as well. It says, if you see at the top, it says my defense difficulty and my attack difficulty. So what you can actually do is once you actually got your team loaded up, which I haven't, so I haven't done that. You can actually sort it by your players, so you can actually physically look at the fixture difficulty of the players. I suppose that helps you select your team. But yeah, I mean, another fixture difficulty. Again, we don't know how it works. We don't know the inner workings. We've already said that there's many different ways of. I was going to say skinning a cat. Because the cat behind me is about to pull the flag off the unit. It's just at this moment got its claws embedded into the flag. So if it flies off and picture frames fly off in a moment, you'll know why.
Because England's going to lose to Ukraine.
And then the cat will get skinned. Yeah. But no, there is more. It's horrible. There's more than one way to skin a cat. It's horrible. But... but at the end of the day, I don't know why I even thought of it. But no, again, if you're looking at something, if you're trying to organise your fixture difficulties, I think there's a lot worse out there than this Fix offering. I particularly like the ability to be able to put your players in. I think for me, I like that. That's something that could be something that we could try to do, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to look at that somehow. Guys, any comment on this, or should we just keep going and hit the main event, which is our own?
Just keep going, I think.
Okay, so let's keep going. So anyway, right, here's ours. So the FPL Mariner fixture difficulty. How does it work? So we're matching up attack against defense, or defense against attack, whichever way around. And what data are we using? We are using for the data set. And I think just winding back very quickly, because I didn't bring that up, I think that's also a very, very key point, right? Because you only need to just fix up and down a couple of weeks. Fix or any of them up or down a couple of weeks with respect to expected points. And you'll see very quickly that the orders change. So what data are we actually going to use? What data are everybody else using? And I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges that anyone who is trying to put a fixture difficulty together has. Right? And I think this year is even more difficult than normal. Because let's face it, the last time we had fans in the ground, barring one game, was March 2020.
There's chat that come August they could be talking about full capacity, I think.
Yes, with no away fans. Away fans till Christmas. So for that reason, are we going to see an even more polarized home and away scenario?
Well, you think about it. I think you look at a team like Leeds and they were playing such high octane stuff like, pressing football. Can you imagine Leeds playing that in front of like a packed Elland Road with no fans, no away fans?
It's an injection of straight just adrenaline right into their veins from the fans. It's going to be sick. And then on the flip side, you have West Ham, who are not going to sell out their stadium, or historically don't. And will their like home fans, will that have a negative and an adverse effect on them because they realize that, well, or I don't know, maybe I'm picking on West Ham when West Ham will have fans because they're doing well. Who knows?
But look at the Euros. Look at the Euros and look at how exciting the games have been in the Euros. And like you're talking about even stadiums like I suppose they bring West Ham on there. You're talking about stadiums that maybe only have 10, 15,000 fans. And the players are obviously feeding off the crowd, and we're seeing a lot of goals and stuff like that. So I know at the start of last season, we saw a lot of anomaly matches where there were a lot of goals because I think games were nearly like friendly fixtures because they didn't have any fans. And I think this year we could see maybe a lot of high scoring games to open up because of the home field advantage.
I think that's it's definitely possible. It could be. This is, I think, the most difficult thing about this, and this cat is wrecking this room now. Things are going to fall off any moment. We're looking at, like I say, what, 18, well, it's nearly 2 years ago, isn't it? Well, no, it's not. When was the last time we had fans in? I can't even think. It's 14.
A year and a half. It'll be a little more than a year and a half when we start.
A year and a half ago. So we're using data up to 2 years old. I am, anyway. So up to 2 years old, because that was the only time that fans were in the ground, apart from the last game of the season. Obviously, we're going to start looking at home and away fixture difficulty as well, which we didn't do last year because we didn't see the point. But I think we have to now. 2020-21, we're looking at a full season with no fans, barring the last game. So what do we do with teams like Norwich and Watford and Brentford? So Norwich and Watford aren't so difficult because at least there is some fixture difficulty available for when there was fans back in 2019, 2020, right? But there's nothing since. So what can you do? All you can do is carry the whole thing across. Hello, cat. Well, bugger off. Brentford, on the other hand, you see, have no data at all. So Brentford are a really difficult one to try and work out. So again, what we've had to do something. So the only way I've looked at that is I've looked at the performance of Brentford against in the last season in the Championship against Norwich and against Watford home and away, and then tried to then extrapolate back where they would sit into that similar fixture difficulty for Norwich and Watford back in 2019 in the Premier League.
Can you explain that with a little more detail how you extrapolated back? Because I think I find that strategy really, really quite interesting.
Well, the way I've done, basically, we know what the numbers were in 2019
for Watford and Norwich.
So because we know where they sat home and away with respect to attack and defence, I then looked at Brentford, their performance against Norwich and against Watford home and away, and then put them slightly above, extrapolated above or below those numbers, right? That's the only way to do it. It's a little bit stick your finger in the air, lick your finger, point in the direction of the wind and see what, throw a bit of grass up and see which way it's blowing, in Gareth Bale's case, perhaps on the golf course. But yeah, you've got to go somewhere. But the beauty of fixture difficulties is that they do change. And they change constantly. Now, what have we done at the moment? Well, we've allocated 1/3. So it's a straightforward averaging at this moment in time is what I've decided to do. So we're taking 1/3 of the data from 1920, 1/3 of the data from 2021, and 1/3 of the data from the last 6 games last season. So we've got recent. So we've got recent history, the last season, and also some historic data, which I think, for example, you cannot ignore the fact that certain teams are a tough nut to crack at home, right? Certain teams don't travel well away. But what you'll see as we go on is that by using some of the historic data, it throws a problem. Because, of course, what's happened is teams have changed significantly, right? Aston Villa, for example. They're a really good example of how a team has changed an awful lot from 2019-20 to now. So, and of course, that would then skew Aston Villa's number. Do you see where I'm coming from?
That's the trouble, right, about using historic data. Is teams change, managers change, but also opposition changes, and that especially in the modern game, there's so much movement of players, of coaches, of changing of systems. That's does it make you nervous? I guess would be the question. That
a little, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is, as I mentioned at the start, fixture difficulty is just it's an important cog, but it's just one of them, right? People can say, oh, you've got recency bias, right? We hear this all the time. Oh, you've got recency bias, or, you're looking at too small a data set. Then you've got somebody saying, oh, you're looking at too big a data set. What is right? Nobody knows. You've got to take a call at some level. But the main thing was what I would say is that the main working of the metric does not change, apart from now home and away. So the fixture difficulty now works on XG90 against expected goals conceded, XG and XGC 90 over 90 minutes. Big chances created, 90 minutes against conceded for the defense, 90 minutes. Shots in the box and the headers over 90 minutes against shots in the box conceded and headers over 90 minutes. I explained last week where it comes from the 0 to 7. It comes out of Ben Krellin's spreadsheet, which I'm eagerly awaiting. And I think that's another benefit of Hub Hibbo, because you get that Excel spreadsheet, which I absolutely love.
The transfer planner.
Yeah,
that's really good. I have to say, it's really good.
It's bloody good, isn't it? No, I use that, and that's where I got the idea of the 0 to 7, because my original thoughts with fixture difficulty was I couldn't quite work out where Ben had got his numbers from. So what I want to do is try and work out my own numbers, then compare them against his. And that's where ultimately, you might decide, you guys watching or listening to this might decide to create your own fixture difficulty. Why not? There was one created this week, Hibbo. I forget his name. I should have written it down.
He's a South African fella. I think his Twitter handle is Rent40, and he created a thread, and the title of the thread was the maths behind Moneyball. And he did a course, I think it was at Houston University.
Right.
And he applied the mathematics and created a model for the Premier League, which I thought it was really interesting.
Me too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very impressed with it. And I just wish I had time to actually put it into the comparison of the whole thing. Although I think I actually did put it into the comparison. I'm not sure I dropped it into the slide deck. So because we've been so busy at work this week. But anyway,
but just to say about Brendan's thread, it's like, you know, you can go on FPL Twitter and you can see like so many threads. Like somebody will write a thread basically about the color of their own shoes or something like that, and like Brendan's thread was just absolutely top class, and it didn't actually get the kind of traction that I personally think that it deserved.
No. And interestingly enough, I did exactly this yesterday, and I would recommend that this is my plea to the Twitter community. If you see something good, retweet it. Tell people that this account's, you know, criminally unsubscribed or criminally unfollowed or whatever you want to put it. I did one yesterday for one of our friends on the show, Thavindra Raj. He did the most amazing Euro fantasy thread. Wasn't getting any traction at all. You know, it's a nice thing to do. Let's share the love, share the love and the tweets. I suggest, but no, I will actually. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get Brendan's email and I'm going to retweet it out with a comment and possibly say, you know, you like this, come and also have a look at the show and hashtag ad. And see what else what other things FDR can offer. The way ours works, of course, is it works on the basis of delta. So it looks, because it compares both sides the same, we get a delta. And that delta is between the attack and the defense, or vice versa. A value of 0 is neutral. A positive fixture difficulty is good. That'll be dark green. And a negative fixture difficulty is bad, which is red. Okay? Got dark red, and then you've got different shades in between. So let's have a look at the actual fixture difficulty for the first 5 games, and there you will see it. Okay, so you can see now my fixture difficulty is sorted for attack and defense. This is just attack. Quite often, what we'll show on the actual shows when we're getting into them is we'll show attack and defense alongside each other. But for the purposes of this, I've just filtered out just for attack. And, you know, again, we'll come to the actual number of who we like later on. But I think it's fairly obvious to see, for example, that Liverpool's matchup in game week 1 against Norwich is very positive, plus 3.3. Okay. I don't think that's rocket science. I think even the fixture difficulty for FPL official site's green. Okay, but it's about working out how green, how red, how neutral. You know, Man City against Spurs, you know, 0.9. It's positive, but it's not that positive. You know,
I think it should be a wee bit more positive, if I'm being honest.
No, you're probably right. But at the end of the day, mate, it works on. It's the way it's working. It's the inner they're going to churn something out, and you're right to challenge it, and you're right to challenge any fixture difficulty because you are thinking, for example, oh, hang on a minute, let's actually give a perfect example. Let's move to an example. Let's move to defence, and Brighton are very positive when it comes to defence in the first few weeks. Generally speaking, they've got some very, very nice fixtures by the looks of things. Certainly, Watford and Everton, particularly the home games, look very positive for them with respect to fixture difficulty. But there's the point we mentioned last night when we were chatting. White. Ben White's gone. Okay. Is Basuma going to go? Is that 2.4, 1.4? Is that 1.4, 0.4 on the back of if those players leave? So you've got to cut through this. This is just a starting point, right? Is that fair, guys?
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like, I think in the community at the minute, Brighton are defensively, they're receiving a lot of love, and it's understandable because when you look at the second half of the season in terms of their numbers, they were right up there in terms of defensively, like up there we say Man City and Chelsea, like just behind them in terms of defensive numbers. Is that going to translate, as you say, if Ben White leaves and Basuma leaves? Like, teams are going to have to adjust. Are they going to sign a new player? Looking at Lamptey, I think he represents good value still at 4.5. Like, you know, I look at players that I think, is there a chance of getting kind of returns from maybe clean sheets, but also from assists? And maybe we know he got on the box and a lot of play went down the right-hand side last season when he did play. I know at times he was disappointing, but no, I think Brighton's one to watch, and I think watch this space. I'll probably read something about Brighton in the next week or two.
I'm sure you both. I'm sure you both will.
No, I'm actually kind of itching to kind of get going at it. Like, you know,
he's there. Gabe, your views on shall we say, understanding a fixture difficulty, and particularly maybe perhaps referencing this slide.
I think, I mean, the first thing I would I guess echo here, Mariner, is your point that this is very much, even more so than later on in the season. It's just, you know, at the beginning of the season, the FDR is a much smaller piece of the puzzle because there's so much information that the FDR can't take into account. For example, like the ones you mentioned about Brighton. What if Graham Potter leaves? What does that do to all our Brighton data, right? All of these things can just skew the data, and there's no way for a statistical FDR to account for kind of real life occurrences like that. The other thing I will say is just regarding the stats. You know, Brighton, they conceded 10.14 more goals than expected last season for various reasons, which I'll get into in matchups. This is part of my matchups research here, and their XG their XG on target. So XG on target is what the XG is after the shot is taken. It's a post-shot XG model. Regular XG is a pre-shot model. So after a shot is taken, Brighton added 5 XG to the situation. So their XG on target conceded was 5 more than their XG conceded last season. So how does an FDR account for these kind of like subtleties in the stats, right? Because an FDR, I think in order for it to be effective, needs to remain as broad and as simple as possible. Like if it gets too granular, then there are too many ingredients in the soup, right? So I think that would be the one thing I'd say. Just be aware of situations.
Yeah, exactly. You know, is one goalkeeper playing? Is Nick Pope playing? Or is what's his name, Bailey Peacock Farrell playing?
Well, like we saw that last year. We saw that last year with Martinez, and like Martinez was like ridiculous in terms of what he was preventing in terms of XG. Like, you know, and like people looked at Villa and said, "Oh, Villa are defending really well," but like how much of that was Martinez kind of digging them out of a hole? Like he was making kind of wonder saves, pulling out 10-point holes out of his arse. Like, you know, it was.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. At one stage, I had Martinez as a wall. I think I put a wall on a slide and just said he was a brick wall, just bricked the goal up pretty much because he was doing that well. He didn't towards the end of the season. He as a Martinez owner, I didn't get many clean sheets at the end of that season. I know I didn't. Interestingly enough,
his stats regressed at the end of the season, and he actually built up. He was by far he took the most XG away from shots. And that went down. I think in the end he still ended up with the most XG taken away between when you compare XG to XG on target. But it dropped I think it almost halved in the last 8 game weeks or something like that.
I remember us talking about it. It was him and Areola who were very, very high at that at one stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like I think that happened for a number of reasons. One, like towards the tail end of the season, Villa's fixtures weren't great. But I also think now, and I think this is a bit of an underrated point, that was like how Villa coped when Grealish was out of the side. Now, I know this maybe sounds a bit, bear with me, right? But like Grealish is an attacking player, and like you're wondering, well, how's he affecting the defensive side of the ball? But the way I see it is the opposition can't score if you have the ball. And like he was basically their talisman. He was their most important ball carrier. See, whenever Grealish was out of the side, they didn't have that kind of player who was going to get them up the field and take the pressure off. And I think they ended up, when you were watching Villa games, you were maybe seeing wave after wave of attack coming upon them. Whereas like when Grealish was there, attack's the best form of defense at times. And I think that kind of played on the Villa's downfall towards the end of the season.
One thing I'll add to that is to your point there, Hibbo, is Grealish was the obvious kind of transition, the link player in transition, right? So when you take Grealish out of there, when Villa lose the ball, who do they go to? Like just that, not having that go-to player, that lightning rod, really discombobulates a side.
Bloody hell, that's a big word.
I don't know where I pulled that one from. It's not really a word that I use.
So what do you call that? Back to the Future?
Hibbo's drinking beer out the corner of his mouth as well.
Hibbo's straight gangster today with the 40 out the side.
Are you going to do one of these, this thing with your Guinness live on air?
Not tonight.
Oh, another night then. Well, I love that. That's amazing. But we'll talk about that on Twitter. Come to Twitter and we'll have a chat about it maybe tomorrow when Hibbo wakes up. Right. Anyway, so that's that. So here's my difficulty. Here's my 1 to 20. So okay. So where are we? So Liverpool attack top for the first 5 fixtures. I think most people have pretty much worked that one out. They're pretty strong. So let's just run through them. Liverpool 2.3 positive. Man City 2.2, Man United 1.4, with Chelsea 1.4, Leicester 0.9, Newcastle 0.8. And then we go into a very, very neutral set through the middle. Leeds, West Ham, Brighton, Spurs, Villa, Burnley, Everton, Arsenal, Southampton, and Wolves, all within plus or minus 0.5. So all pretty neutral sort of attacking fixture difficulty for the first 5 with respect to matchups. And then at the bottom end, Watford, Brentford, Crystal Palace, who could be the whipping boys, I think, and Norwich. So that's attack. Defense, Man City top. Even with that rotation affecting them a little bit towards the end of the season, they were still top. 1.2. Brighton, as we mentioned, 1. Manchester United, 0.9. Chelsea, 0.8. And then another chunk. And that basically says to me, potentially, that my fixture difficulty particularly likes 4 teams with respect to defence. It likes Manchester City, it likes Brighton, it likes Manchester United, and it likes Chelsea. Once we start getting beyond that, it starts going into the realms of I'm not quite so sure. So it's not quite so sure about Leicester, Liverpool. I'm not sure about Spurs. I'm not quite sure what is that. But anyway, they are. So, Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs, Everton, Arsenal, all these sort of teams are worth a look, I'm sure. But I'm not quite sure. This is where the thought process comes in. If you're picking players out of this, you've got to think about it. For me, a lot more. And then at the bottom end, Southampton were dreadful, to be honest. Their stats were really poor at the end of the last season, and that's really shown on this. Norwich, Crystal Palace, reading up. Leeds were still not great, okay, but I think Leeds had improved. Newcastle, West Ham, Burnley, Brentford. Brentford, you see, looking at the data, Brentford looked fairly tight compared to where we actually slotted them in. So Brentford might not be as big a whipping boy as perhaps some people might think. It's difficult to say, but at the moment, my fixture difficulty treats them fairly nicely. Anything you want to mention on that before we move on?
Well, very briefly on Brentford, I've been reading about analysis, and it wasn't particularly FPL Twitter or threads. It was kind of tactical analysis, and it talks about Brentford. Basically, they like to press high, and they try and force teams on the mistakes where they give the ball away as they're playing out from the back. And the analysis that I read now seems to think that potentially Brentford could play a high line, and I think if they play a high line in the Premier League, I think they could get absolutely skinned alive, to be honest with you. It remains to be seen.
No, but that could hurt them. And like you said, they're playing a different style. So they play a different style in the Premier League compared to the Championship and things like that. So yeah, it's something to watch this space. You know, I don't think anybody's potentially going to be going on a Brentford defender early doors anyway. So let's be honest. Gabe,
the first thing I want to get to a question there by John Chappelle I hope it's Chappelle, maybe it's Chappell, but I think it's Chappelle in the chat here is, how do Man City get near the top for attacking with Spurs away, with the new manager, Arsenal and Leicester away? So I think this isn't this is just a ranking, correct, Mariner?
Yeah, but it's a ranking, but bear in mind that is actually but bear in mind we're talking about, as we've mentioned at the start, the data goes such a long way back, right? You've got to think that it's only a third of it is the last 6 games. A third of the next part is for the full season. The part before that is prior to lockdown. We've got to try and get some historic data with fans in grounds.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think that answer leads to my point is, you can see they're all of the ratings there are quite close. As the season goes on, like we saw last year, Sheffield United break the metric and they went to 7.2.
Yes,
right? But the lowest here is for attack is 1.1, negative 1.1, and Southampton and defense is negative 1.9. So these are you can tell it's historic data.
Gabe, to let you know, that's a bit wrong. This is the matchups. This is the actual comparisons between. So I've got the actual numbers somewhere. But the numbers themselves, maybe I'll post those on Twitter, actually, unless I don't think... I was more interested in just trying to rank them for now. I think when we actually get to the fixture difficulties, as we get close to the start of the season, I was going to put them up in the actual, full glory. But I wanted to show the more of a matchup sort of scenario for now.
I see.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, I agree with John's point. I think Man City are an absolute powerhouse. Like, their numbers speak for themselves. Like, you're looking at, say, Spurs, Arsenal, Leicester. You're talking about them fixtures and saying, they're difficult games. Can you not see Man City scoring against Spurs and Arsenal? Spurs are flaky. Arsenal are flaky. Yeah. Leicester can be got at. No, but at the same time, they wouldn't be kind of conducive. I'm looking... I haven't made a first draft, but if I was looking at making a first draft, I would be kind of torn and going, well, am I even going to start with De Bruyne? Because we're talking about, say, fixtures and transition, and we're saying, well, look, we're going to see fixtures and blocks, and this looks like a particularly difficult block, I think, for Man City on paper. And then you look from game week 7 onwards, and I think it gets a lot easier. So I think there's times they target certain teams, and I think this early part of the season, I could maybe fade Man City attack. I'm not entirely decided yet.
I mean, the one thing I would say, and this is not scrambling in any way, shape, or form regarding this question, but they do play Norwich and Southampton at home in the first 5.
No, that's.
So they could be 6-0s.
They could be 6-0.
They could be 6-0s. So you only need to look at it from that perspective. And this is the point, I think, Hibbo, and I think you made a great point last night when we were busy chatting away when I was supping me gin, about the blocks. Is 5 weeks too wide? Should we be looking at 3? Should we be looking at 4? Should we... Of course, you've got to consider rotation, but you're probably not going to... I saw somebody saying they're going to rotate City defenders in and out. I'm not. If I pick a City defender, he plays. They can keep a clean sheet anywhere, in my view. But with respect to this, 5 weeks, those 2 fixtures there, just Norwich and Southampton themselves should be, is potentially enough to hold those players, right? Potentially to bring them in game week 2 and hold them.
Well,
do you see what I mean?
What I'll say is, we're probably going to do a specific show or a specific pod where we're going to talk about strategy mainly, and what I will say is there is a fairly significant fixture swing around kind of game week 7 and game week 8. Now, I wouldn't be an advocate of, say, pre-planning, say, even transfers, never mind pre-planning the wild card. but it could be a good time to kind of switch it up. And if we're looking at an overall strategic view of the game and we think we're maybe going to wildcard, then you could be ultra aggressive and kind of flip-flop premium players on to kind of go, well, I'm maybe going to pick up De Bruyne in game week 2. It's an option. But like they pull you back in your point where you're talking about, see, for the purposes of this exercise, I think the game week range is fine. I tend to look, for my attacking players, I tend to look at blocks of 3 game weeks. But for me, defenders, I would kind of tend to look at kind of like a broader range, planning to say, well, I wouldn't want to come up myself to say a wildcard in game week 7. So I might look at some kind of rotation or fixtures that are maybe going to work for me for at least the first third of the season without kind of getting too deep into it. Like, you know, and the reason for that is I don't want to be wasting transfers on defenders. I only want to be spending my transfers on, if it means taking out, say, a Bruno for like a KDB or something like that, which is going to be like a high impact. How much impact are you going to get changing like a 4.5 or a 5 million defender? Like, it just wouldn't be for me. I would nearly put it in the bun with goalkeeper transfers. You know, it's...
No, you make a very, very good point. But as I said, I think strategy-wise, we may well start the strategy as early as next week. Maybe strategy is a nice way of looking at it. Next thing to do before we start diving into the individual teams, because we're still about 5 weeks away, aren't we? Can't quite remember. It's a bit too early in the morning to even think about that.
We're about 6 weeks out.
Yeah,
5 or 6 weeks.
5 weeks before we get to normal content or something like that. So yeah. Right, guys. So that's that bit. So now what we're going to do is we're going to quickly just have a little break, exercise our maybe lubricate our vocal cords a little bit. Certainly, I will. And then we'll be back with the comparison of all of them. So just stand by a second. Are you craving more FPL content? Then look no further than allaboutfpl.com. Head over there for weekly articles from some of the top content creators on the planet. So what are you waiting for? Head over to allaboutfpl.com, the website for all your FPL needs. So there we go. So as always, we've got this strategic partnership with Surya and the gang at allaboutfpl.com. Won't be too long before articles from yourself, Gabe, will be appearing there.
Yeah, actually, thanks to Hibbo. Hibbo gave me a great idea for a scouting report piece that I'm working on for allaboutfpl.com. So yeah, definitely look forward to that. Cool.
So anyway, let's crack on. So now let's look at the comparison. So this is where it starts to get interesting. So what I've done is I've put my ranks in, then I've put Hub's ranks, basis opponent difficulty, goals for, then predicted results by Hub again. So 2 different fact calculations for Hub, because we can do it that way. So let's use them. And then fix by attacking difficulty, however they calculate that. And then that gives us overall 1 to 5 game week, which is actually a straightforward average of the rating. So no scientific maths here, just nothing short of put them in order, 1 to 20, and then spit a number out at the end. So what's it done? Well, how has it worked it out? Well, overall, it has Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Brighton, and West Ham as the top 5 with respect to attack. And I think looking at this, guys, and let's do this in blocks, I don't think there's a great deal of divergence there. My metric doesn't like Brighton or West Ham so much. It ranks them 9th and 8th. And Fix doesn't like Manchester United at 9. But apart from that, Liverpool, 1, 3, 3, 2. Manchester City, 2, 6, 1, 4. So interesting. Look at Hub there. By opponent difficulty, 6. By predicted result, 1. Does that answer John's question? Do you see what I mean?
That'll be goals.
Goals for, predicted result. Yeah.
I mean, I think it does address John's question in that City have such a potent attack that even a mid-table team like Spurs can't really ding them, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I think there's not a lot of divergence there in that top 5. I think, is that fair to say?
There is, but like I'm going to make a point here, and I think it relates specifically to Fix. And I know, like, we're looking at, say, a game week range, like we set the game week range to 5 for the FDR. But Aston Villa have a great opening 3 fixtures, like you're talking about. Watford away from home, Newcastle at home, Brentford at home. From an attacking perspective, we're going to be, say, focusing maybe on players like Watkins and Buendia. We're seeing them in drafts.
Yeah,
we're going to assume that Grealish is going to go to Man City, although if he stays, Villa are going to become even more attractive. But this is what I'm talking about blocks of 3 game weeks as opposed to blocks of 5. And like, I wouldn't, if I was making a draft at the minute and I looked at those first 3 game weeks, I wouldn't want to take a more longer term view with my attackers and say, I'm going to fade, say, Villa attack, because again, there's a potential you could get skinned alive with ownership, because I think Watkins and Buendia will be fairly heavily owned.
Between me and you, I've got Watkins in my draft.
Aye, understandable.
So look, this is just what we're finding. This is a debating point. You know, this is, but if you notice that we were looking at it in blocks, you've just jumped into the next block, Hibbo, but let's go to the next block because Villa are top of that next block. They sit in 6, but look, there is divergence. My fixture difficulty doesn't really like them. And I've explained why, because there's been a big change in Villa. You know, they've changed a lot in that over that period of time. So my fixture difficulty ranks them at 11th. But saying that, if I look back at this, remember my fixture difficulty takes into account their end of season form. It wasn't great.
No, they were poor. Like, granted, they were poor.
Yeah, but so anyway, so mine's picks them as 11th. Hubs by opponent difficulty 8th, predicted results 7th. Yet Fix has them 1st. Mm-hmm. That is a big divergence for me. That's a big divergence.
You would have to wonder how many times Watkins maybe going to hit the crossbar in the first 3 games.
Well,
I think he broke the record last year for crossbars in the season.
The carpenter. Because he loves woodwork. Oh, dear me. But yeah, what to say. But let's keep going down here. So let's look at this next block. So in the middle, we've got Arsenal. This is in order for everybody. Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea, Everton, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, Everton, Arsenal, Leeds, Wolves, Spurs, and Leicester. And my fixture difficulty is the only one which really likes Leicester, oddly enough. So that's another divergence, but there's a few. Let's look at the diverging one.
Can I ask you a question really quickly here, Mariner? So you just indicated the 2 areas or the 2 teams where your FDR differs or diverges from the rest. Now, in your current draft, do you have more Villa players or do you have more Leicester players?
I have Outtro in my draft at the moment and Fofana, but obviously we're only talking about attack.
But you also have the Carpenter.
And the Carpenter.
Okay, so you are slightly leaning towards your FDR then in your current draft.
I think I am at the moment, but that's subject to change. But look, I mean, if we look here, let's look for divergences. Let's start. We've mentioned Villa. Newcastle has been treated pretty favourably by all fixture difficulties for attack. 6th, 7th, 9th, and 5th. Okay. Chelsea, 4th, 11th, 5th, and then Fix has them 14th. Yet, Gabe, you mentioned, I'm going to nail you down on this because you've said this virtually every time I've spoken to you in the last few weeks. Havertz has been in your draft since the moment you launched your FPL.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fair warning. I'm not taking my draft seriously at all right now. But
oh, you can't say that. You said Havertz has been in all along.
But Havertz has not left, and I can't. When I look at the draft, Havertz is a player that's playing Crystal Palace, as you guys mentioned. It could be the whipping posts, the whipping boys this year.
Yeah,
and I see Havertz how he's grown as a player since recovering from COVID. His evolving role at Chelsea as the 9, his evolving role with Germany as the 9, and his form for both club and country and I am extremely interested in Havertz to start the season.
I'll tell you my thoughts on Chelsea. So, like, I obviously think Crystal Palace in game week 1 is like a complete plum tie. If I was a betting man, which I am, I would put money on Patrick Vieira being sacked by Christmas, being totally honest with you. They play Arsenal, they play Liverpool, and they play Spurs, but they also have Villa at home, and I don't think Villa at home's the easiest game in the first 5. The way I'm sitting at the minute is I might fade Chelsea until game week 7 because they're one of these teams that the fixtures transition and there's a big shift from game week 7 onwards. If I do fade Chelsea, I'm going to be fairly scared going into game week 1, if I'm being honest. So we'll see.
So you might favour Fix on this occasion then with Chelsea if you're swerving them, because to be honest, both myself and Hub's predicted results has Chelsea 4th and 5th.
But what I think about Fix, what Fix maybe are factoring into this, well, I don't know because I don't know the people at it. But what I will say is, for so many games last year, Chelsea under Tuchel were like 1-0 to the Chelsea, and are they going to be necessarily high scoring? Those games against Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, although those teams I've said previously, well, Arsenal and Spurs I think are flaky.
Yeah.
Are Chelsea going to roll them over? Or are they going to be happy enough they won 1-0? In which case you probably need to have Havertz involved in the goals in both games they won, or else he needs to go crazy against Crystal Palace. He could go crazy against Crystal Palace.
Yeah. No, definitely. Just quickly looking at this section again, a bit further down. Look, the Rafa Benitez side of things will come out with Everton before too long. I think I must have foresawn Rafa Benitez with my rank of 13 for Everton when everybody else likes them. I don't think there's a lot of love for him at the moment. I think they're all complaining. But anyway, let's keep going. I'm going to pick on Leeds here. I rank them reasonably well. 7th, not brilliant, but 7th. Hub 10th and 12th, yet Fix 19th. To me, that is a big divergence. Again, I can't quite work out that to me is, and Fix has picked Leeds and Leicester 18th and 19th. Now,
I don't think Leeds should ever be 19th.
No, I agree.
For attack.
But look, it's an average, and however they're doing it, I know they're playing. Leeds have got Liverpool, right? But I think Liverpool are easy. I think Leeds can easily score against Liverpool. Haven't they got Liverpool early doors? I think they have they? Or am I going crazy?
They had them early doors last season, and they give them everything straight out the blocks. So.
But I mean, Leeds have got Man United away, Everton at home, Burnley away, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away. They could easily bag. I mean, look, I'm probably going to be starting this. I'm probably starting with Rafinha, almost definitely. So, I'm going to back them to do okay. All right, so that's that side of it. The bottom end, we walked up Leicester. I suppose we can talk about another day. But Watford, Burnley, Brentford, Southampton, Crystal Palace, and Norwich. Attack-wise, nobody really likes them. That said, we can talk about Ivan. We can talk about Tony another day, right? But he could be interesting. So that's that side. Let's now go to the defense and let's compare the defense and look again for any outliers, or should we say, variance and divergence. So defensively, Brighton sit top. Second by me. First by Hub on clean sheets. First by Hub on predicted results, and fifth by Hub on predicted results, and second for Fix as well. So Brighton sit top. Caveat, Ben White. Caveat, possibly Basuma. Liverpool.
Caveat or Brighton.
Caveat, that's right. Good point.
I do think they're being overvalued. Like, I do think it's like, it's like the Emperor's new clothes. Everybody's like, oh, look at Brighton. They've got great fixtures. And
it's an interesting one because there is a possibility, unless that Manchester United keeper situation appears very, very clear, I might start with Sanchez. I probably will start with Sanchez, and I may even have a second Brighton defender. So there we go. So am I already overdoing him? I don't know. We'll have to see. Starting with double Brighton, is that suicide or is it sensible? Let's see. Let's look at this middle block.
You're effectively going to become the basis of one of my first articles of the season without knowing it.
What, being a cock?
No. Just favouring the Brighton defence. Like I'm definitely going to do something on Brighton defence.
I think that's a great idea because I'd love to see it. Because from my perspective, as I said, there's a lot of caveats, but the numbers, and remember, I'm a numbers man, right? The numbers really do support Brighton. Really.
I think the last time the numbers supported Brighton this much was the double game week where people triple captained Dunk.
Buffy. I triple captain Buffy.
There you go.
That was a Duffy week. Let's look at this middle section, boys. So in this middle tranche, we've got Man United, Spurs, Arsenal, Leicester, Chelsea, Wolves, Brentford, Everton, Watford, and West Ham. And they all sit with some greens, some reds for people who are listening to this. Let's start with Manchester United. I rank Manchester United third for attack. For defence. Hub ranked them 8th for clean sheets, 4th for predicted results. Fix has them 14th. So again, there's a bit of a divergence there. Let's talk about Arsenal, Leicester, and Chelsea. And you'll see Arsenal by clean sheets, Leicester and Chelsea are not favoured by Hub's clean sheet ticker. Isn't it interesting how these things diverge? I'm not saying any of them wrong. I'm not saying Fix is wrong for Manchester United being 14th. I'm not saying Hub's wrong with Arsenal, Leicester, and Chelsea 14th, 15th, and 16th. Okay, but what it does mean is that fixture difficulty, as we say, it's a real jigsaw puzzle. Is that fair to say, Gabe?
Yeah, it's an interesting jigsaw puzzle that if you didn't have a favorite, or since when you don't know what the secret sauce is behind it, you may just want to average them, right?
Which is what we've done.
Trying to set you up.
No, which is what we've done. But I mean, look, to be honest with you, my metric seems, and I said this the other day, it seems to follow fairly closely Hub predicted results. That seems to be where I tend to sit. I seem to match up more with that than anybody else, oddly enough. Yet, Hub ticker, sometimes it follows Fix and other times it doesn't. With respect to the clean sheets here. So it's strange. But one thing is very clear, guys, is that no one really likes Southampton, Crystal Palace, Norwich, Leeds, Newcastle, Burnley at all with respect to defence. West Ham's of divergence sat down at the bottom, whereas I don't necessarily like West Ham's defence, neither does predicted results on Hub or Fix, yet the Hub clean sheet does. So I don't know if there's more questions than answers here, guys. But
can I say one thing really quickly on Burnley?
Of course.
So Burnley stats are that obviously quite poor. However, Burnley's XG on target is more than 7 fewer than XG on target conceded is more than 7 fewer than their XG, which means as the team obviously that with the most blocks, 180 blocks last season, they take away XG from shots. So that's something that may not be captured in these models. So among that bottom block which they're all terrible, I think there may be occasionally, depending on the fixture, some value in Burnley defense.
It's kind of all set up for Burnley about how they kind of crowd the box and how they only let in kind of these kind of like low quality shots and kind of away, and I suppose we've seen when Pope was making all the saves and he was a great pick not last season, maybe the season before, but that was part and parcel because he was making easy saves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. But yeah, look, it's interesting points. I think what we'll do, we'll wrap this up now. I think we've talked enough about how these diverge, and I think what we'll do now is we'll go back into mine, and now is the chance for you to have a bit of a go at me. because these are the teams that I am looking at this moment in time. So I'm looking at Liverpool for attack, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea and Leicester. And my punt would be West Ham. Now, and defensively, City, Brighton, Manchester United, Chelsea, Leicester, with my punt being Arsenal, just for Gabe. Rob Holding. Just for Gabe. So, obviously, this pretty much matches the fixture difficulty for now. I mean, look, I've left it in like that, but you're absolutely right. Caveat already. We've already said that Manchester City, could you go? You've mentioned Hibbo. You might go without Chelsea, and I'm suggesting perhaps they're there for both. And yeah, but I think fairly logically here, Liverpool, they've got some good fixtures. United, things are still changing with respect to the team. We'll have to see how that comes out. Chelsea, you've mentioned Havertz. Leicester, Iniacho for me was on fire last season towards the end. I really enjoyed owning him. I don't know whether that's a bit of recency bias for me, but it seems to be matched up by the fixture difficulty at this moment in time. So I quite like it. And defensively, I think Manchester City, Brighton, Manchester United. So I'm just going to mention Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw was the first player in my team this season. Very first one I dropped him before anybody. Notice there's no Liverpool in defence.
I'm actually going to pull you up on that whenever.
I know you are.
Whenever the time comes. But just to cycle kind of through attack, I'm very keen on Liverpool. I agree with your ranking in terms of top.
Yeah.
Man United, I'm particularly keen on. I don't necessarily want to nail me close to the mast in terms of a draft this yearly, but I could honestly see myself doubling up Man United attack to start the season. I've already touched on Man City. I've already touched on Chelsea. Leicester, I'm going to pull you back to what I says about looking at 3 game week blocks, and I think we were looking at the comparison where some people didn't really fancy Leicester. Straight out of the blocks, Leicester have Wolves, West Ham and Norwich. They've got Man City in game week 4, which isn't great, but then they've got Brighton and they've got Burnley, followed by Crystal Palace. And I chose 7.5. Is Daka going to impact his game time? I don't know. I kind of think Daka's really a succession plan for Vardy. West Ham are your punt. Again, I think West Ham have got a lovely 3 game block. They've got Newcastle away, Leicester at home, Palace at home, so I do agree. And then even beyond that, Southampton away, Leeds away, and Brentford at home. So there's a lot of appeal. That covers attack. If Gabe wants to have a go.
No, I mean, I think you covered most of the points there. The one thing I would say about Manchester United attack is a player that we've been chatting about in certain circles is Edinson Cavani. Is he going under the radar, especially with the inclusion of Sancho? Will Sancho make Edinson Cavani better, and vice versa? So I think. If you're, how much is Cavani? Is he 8.5 or is he 7.5?
I think he's 7.5.
So he's the same as Iheanacho. So given the team and the fixtures, I think that's an interesting comparison, and two players to weigh there.
He's 8.5, chaps.
He's 8.5.
He's 8.5, right?
Well,
yeah.
That obviously changes the calculus there, but certainly someone to consider early on, if for those that are quite high on Manchester United attack.
No, I mean, look, I agree. I mean, look, if I made a few notes on this. I've moved across to the ticker now to show the attack side of things with the fixtures there. But we don't really need to talk about Liverpool really. But I mean, I can see them hammering potentially three teams there. I could see them potentially hammering Norwich, hammering Burnley, and hammering Palace, right?
The other team I'll bring up that was quite high on your attack FDR, Mariner, and that hasn't been mentioned at all is Newcastle and Callum Wilson.
Yeah.
A healthy Callum Wilson coming back to troll your life again.
Well, I've buried the hatchet with Callum Wilson. I would have even owned him at the end of last season, I think, if he hadn't got injured.
I'm never buying Callum Wilson, boys. never again.
I'm looking at this though, and I'm in Newcastle. These matchup plus 1.1 neutral, plus 1.7 slight minus, plus 1.7. That suggests that they've got a chance, but I'm not sure they're going to go crazy in any of those games. But Callum Wilson has a big chunk of their XG, right? A big chunk, normally. So,
but you look at their team at the tail end of last year, and we imagine they're not going to have Willock.
Yes, true. Well, maybe we don't know, do we? But if they got Willock back, then he would be an interesting option, perhaps. What I wanted to do was just talk about some of the we pulled some stats off Hub overnight. So if we were to look at Manchester City, right, recent, XG at home first, 2.4 per 90. Big chances, 3 equals second. Shots in the box, 12.8 second. They're away, 1.6 XG, sixth. Big chances, 2.17, fifth equal. Shots in the box, 8.83, sixth. And bear in mind, this is the last six when they were rotating. Like Fury. Right? This is why I just think they're going to do that. I just think they're just a very, very strong team. And goodness knows what happens if Harry Kane comes in. Hibbo, you mentioned that I think it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but you mentioned you can't wait. If Harry Kane comes in, you can't wait to see all these premium defenders getting binned off.
This is my problem with kind of drafts at the minute in general. I haven't made a draft for this specific reason, because I know there's too much stuff happening. There's transfers wouldn't be happening. There's managers changing at the minute, and I know everything's kind of in a state of flux. And I just think Harry Kane, the Man City, would be a complete game changer. Every draft in the game would just be wrapped up in the bun. Everybody would have a defense which is just 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.0, trying to squeeze in the three premiums. And I think that's maybe something that we should touch on when we talk kind of strategy. It's like, how many premiums do you think is wise? And I think that's something that we could all talk about, I suppose, when we get Nima back, But basically team structure and how we should structure our team for the start of the season.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Tell you what I wanted to bring up with Manchester United stats at home. Recent stats. XG 1.72, 10th. Big chances 2.5, 8th. Shots in the box 9, 9th. Not great. Away 1.94, third. Big chances 2.4, fourth. Shots in the box 8.4, sixth. Interesting, right?
They didn't have any prawn sandwiches on sale.
But yeah, I mean, look, we can put all these numbers up, and we can share. We'll be sharing all this information on Twitter as we go forwards, anyway, won't we? There'll be heck of a lot of analysis. So I think, but from with respect to attack, that's where we are. Let's keep going. Just a bit mindful of time. Defense, I've highlighted again: Brighton, Chelsea, Leicester, Manchester City, Manchester United. Just to show the fixtures there. Obviously, Brighton, Burnley away, Turf Moor with fans could be tough, right?
Harder.
I think so. I've always mentioned this before. I've been to Burnley on a cold Tuesday night. It's not pleasant. I know it's August, so it might be warm, but then again, it might not be, and it won't be a Tuesday night. But that said, you get fans into places like Burnley, into Turf Moor, into Elland Road, places like that. It's going to be a bit of a game changer, right? I would say. But Watford, Brentford, you can't argue with the fact that basis the numbers, Brighton are up there. What I'm interested in, guys, is what do you think about for example, Leicester. They sit down towards the bottom end of my. So home to Wolves, away West Ham, away Norwich. Obviously, Manchester City at home. That's not favourable at all defensively. And Brighton at home. What do you think about? I'm going to throw you a name. I really like Fofana. I think 4.5. I think he's perfect pricing. So I think there's a possibility of a rotation there, Hibbo. Right?
I think it's been overstated. I think he was priced by the game because they felt that maybe Leicester were going to change their formation and Fofana was potentially going to drop out. This could come to pass and this could be the case, but I like the early fixtures. He's 4.5. I think he's worth a go. And like you're talking about, say, more difficult fixtures there, like Man City, he's benchable. So I definitely think Fofana, and I think he works in rotations with like a Lamptey. So something they definitely look at.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think do Brighton, you mentioned Leeds as well. I think we mentioned Brighton and Leeds as well. I think they rotate, but I think we'll talk about strategy later. Gabe, anything you want to add on this slide here for interest?
Just really quickly on Leicester, my sense, I think what's appealing with Leicester assets is their price. Like we were talking about, Fofana 4.5, really nice price for the player on a team like Leicester, and even 7.5 for Iheanacho is a nice price as well. I don't think these fixtures will be as easy as we expect them to be. I think Wolves home, Bruno Laga. I think people don't know much about him. I've read some on him, and he's a counter-attacking manager, but that applies quite strong pressure around just as a team exits their defensive third, and tries to force force the opposing teams in certain areas. So I think there's a lot of unknown with Wolves. I wouldn't expect the same team that ended the season. West Ham, will they build strength from strength to strength, or will they see a regression? I tend to think that they will build on what they achieved last season. And then obviously Norwich and Man City is difficult. And then, the Brighton conversation, Brighton, if we're talking of Brighton as a good defense, then will they be a good, then they're probably a good defense against Leicester as well. So I think it could be a trap, but what makes them appealing is their price.
I'll tell you the team that appeals to me. It's Arsenal. I say they're down as a punch, really. But, let me give you Arsenal's recent stats. Expected goals conceded at home, 1.03, third. Big chances conceded, 1.67, seventh, equal. Shots in the box conceded, 4.5, second. A clean sheet chance of 0.46. And away, expected goals conceded, 1.17, fifth. Big chances conceded, 1.33, fifth. Shots in the box, 8.67, ninth. And a clean sheet potential of 0.34. Again, cheap price. If there's some cheap pricing, right? Again, to me, looking at that, I see Brentford. I'm not sure I see a clean sheet there, possibly. But I look at Norwich and I look at Burnley, and I can see potential clean sheets there again for Arsenal. They're a bit more punty, but they have tightened up.
I think you have enough time to get data from the season. So, like, if you're looking at that, you're going, they've got Brentford away. We don't know how quick, like, Brentford could fly out the blocks and do well, but they've also got Chelsea and Man City very early doors, and I think there's enough to wait and see. And if you were maybe going to play an early wild card, you could maybe get an Arsenal in. I'm not convinced. I kind of think that'll be a work in progress, if I'm honest.
I think that's fair. I'd say it's a punt. It's a big punt.
I want to mention Liverpool because...
No, you're right. I was going to pick them.
I think defensively, I know you have them maybe sixth in the model, and you didn't have them picked as one of your top kind of picked teams. And like where I kind of sit on Liverpool is, and this isn't strictly your FDR. This will be all kind of algos in a certain way because they're all based on historical data. But I'm looking at kind of videos on the internet, and we're seeing Van Dijk. He's taking the ball down the chest and he's whacking it across the pitch, and you're thinking, They're going to have Van Dijk in pre-season. They're going to have Kanate in pre-season. Trent looked to me as if he wasn't going to go to the Euros in the first place, and then he got injured. I think Trent's going to be a point to prove. I know he's coming back for an injury himself, and I think you're going to see these Liverpool players are going to be back. They're going to have a full pre-season under their belt, and I think we're going to see a different Liverpool. I think I'm very, very keen on Trent, and I haven't made a draft, but if I was making a proper draft, Trent would be nailed in my draft without a doubt. Unless Harry Kane goes to Man City and then Trent's not nailed in my draft.
Well, there is that. At the moment, I mean, I don't know what you think, Gabe. I'll just give you my perspective, and then let you come in, Gabe, on this one. But yeah, I mean, look, the fixture difficulties don't look that favourable. But again, let's not get away from how much has changed, right? There's a lot. Like you're right. You know, Van Dijk coming back. Trent seemingly now starting to come back to a bit of form. Robertson having a bit more of a rest than some others in the Euros. Sorry about that little chuckle there. It all is very favourable, I think, for Liverpool defence. I think I probably will have one in there. I think unless Kane goes to Man City, like Hibbo says, I wouldn't be at all surprised if I don't start with one of Robertson or Trent. Is that fair, Gabe?
Yeah. Nothing to add to that. I think as well. Most people will have Trent in their teams, unless Kane goes to City.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's that. Have we got any questions, boys? Just very quickly, just to finish the show.
I put some there in the chat. I think we've answered several of them, but you can run through them, see if there are any that we haven't. Let's see. Can you get Brentford data from the chat? No. We've answered that. Any updates on James Justin and Harvey Barnes? This is from Ramanathan.
I replied on the chat where it looks as if Bertrand is going from Southampton to Leicester, and that's going to open up the opportunity, I think, for Brandon Williams. They maybe move from United to Southampton on loan. But I don't know if Bertrand is maybe going to be signed as long-term a squad player. I can't really see him being long-term a left-back starter. So he's maybe going to be a stop. Yep.
I mean, we're just so early for these type of questions. I mean, we're very happy to try and answer them for people, but there's just so much can change between now and the start of the season. That's why we wanted to go fairly high level on this show, and I think we probably have. I don't think we've gone too deep. So if people are looking for this game-changing decision-making tool today, this was never going to do that. All it was going to do is thought-provoke. That was our idea.
Yeah,
it's purely about provoking thought, making sure that people think for themselves a little bit as well. Because it's very easy just to rely on these fixture difficulties, on my fixture difficulty, and then look at it and go, hang on a minute, how come that result went that way? And I said, well, you look at it, there's this caveat and there's that caveat, and even when it comes to the captaincy metric, there's going to be a few caveats, right? For sure. Because if the fixture difficulties work in this way, the captaincy metric could come under some scrutiny as well as we get close to the season. So it's very important to understand where we are with the overall. It's almost like calculate a fixture difficulty of fixture difficulties. Like a poll of polls in an election. Combine them all and work out which ones, like you say, work out an average. I'm not quite sure. Guy, any other questions at all? Or is it about time we made a move?
Make the move.
Okay. All right. So, right, guys. That's that. We are Net That Haul. Hibbo, thank you very much for taking the time out on your Friday evening. I hope it's not quite as late as last week, so that's good for you.
No, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you.
Perfect. Gabe, enjoy your Friday evening. Glass of wine, sat on the balcony probably.
Bottle of wine, sat on the balcony, most likely.
Yeah.
I drink my wine out of this insulated, like stainless steel insulated cup now because it gets warm outside in like 3 minutes because it's so hot here. So these things are a lifesaver.
I just like to thank the people that they come on, they watch the show live, like, you know, because I know in the UK time slot this is pretty late. Just about a thank you to the people that come on, because it's really appreciated.
And the chat that they're out and that they're engaged in, our viewers, is really it's great. It's a really good chat, lots of information, lots of different opinions, and it's really nice to follow.
I mean, look, there's been some really wonderful things said about the channel and about the show in recent weeks. It enthuses us to get up at 6:30 in the morning, to stay up till 11 o'clock at midnight to do these things. So if you guys are on when we're on, then all the better, because we know you could just pick it up on YouTube and watch it. So
we're not talking to an empty stadium. We got fans in the seats, which is cool.
So guys, you can pick up Hibbo at Hibbo_FPL, Gabe at FPL Lens, myself at FPL Mariner, Nima hopefully back next week at FPL Nima, isn't it? I think. And yes, where are we going next? We will decide. I think it could be strategy, but I think we will be back, I expect, this time next week. In the meantime, come on, England. Football's coming home.
Boys, you're gonna vote you.
Anyone who's playing Euro Fantasy, I had
Forza.
Anyone who played Euro Fantasy last night, I had binary Spain.
It's too bad Euro Fantasy ends after the group stage. It's a shame. They should extend it some year.
Anyone playing Euro Fantasy needs their head tested, in my opinion.
And on that note, let's get out of here. All right. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube. Get us to put our hands in our pockets for this charity subscriptions, for the charity donations. And not much else to say, but have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. I think I might find it's going to be a tough watch for me. Every game now, between now and England, either winning or getting knocked out. But I'm going to enjoy it all. I'm going to try and enjoy it all the same. So all the best, guys. And we will catch you really soon. All the best. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.